Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a fall and winter discussion for 2021 into 2022. We're going to be looking at the NOAA data that they've provided in terms of the sea surface temperatures, the forecasted sea surface temperatures, whether we'll be going into a La Niña or an El Nino, and much more. This is going to be a two-part video, so we're going to have the first part, of course, coming today, and then tomorrow we'll have the second part of today's video. This would otherwise have been probably a 25 or 30 minute video, so I'm going to split this up into two parts so that you can get the full explanation of both of the parts, and so I can be a little bit more thorough in each video. So we're going to have a ton of information over both of these videos. Make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end of today's video, and make sure you have your notifications turned on so you don't miss tomorrow's video as well. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below and I'll be responding to most of your comments within a couple of hours of you posting them. So here's the current sea surface temperature anomalies, and this is as of July 2021. This is the graphic that was posted from NOAA. You can see that off of the South American coast we have some cooler waters, and that's usually indicative of a La Niña. And in this case, we're looking at probably a weak La Niña. We don't have any of these deeper shades of blue, which you can see on kind of the left-hand side of that bar right there. We don't have any of that really popping up, but we do see some lighter blues, which would indicate that you're maybe 1 or 2 degrees Celsius below normal in some of these spots. As an average, you're about half a degree to a degree Celsius below normal. Some of those warmer temperatures mixing in on the eastern end of the zone might also bring this closer to neutral territory, but these are the sea surface temperatures as of right now. If we look at some of the other factors, including the subsurface sea surface temperatures, so this is basically looking at below the surface of the ocean, how cold are these temperatures or how warm are these temperatures. And this is important because you can have a shallow La Nina, which won't have as many effects because you're not dealing with really too much cooler waters beneath the surface. It's mainly just a surface La Nina. What you would want to see if you want a La Nina, in effect, if you want the winter effects of a La Nina, you would want to see this going down a few hundred meters, or at least a few dozen meters, and you definitely see that here. We're looking at least about 150 meters below the surface, where you're dealing with noticeable below normal sea surface sea temperatures. So you can see that is definitely reaching below the surface of the ocean, and it's definitely not a shallow La Nina like we've seen in other years. And this is important because we can see sometimes where you look at the sea surface temperatures and you say, wow, there's a rather deep area of cooler waters. But then you look at the subsurface temperature anomalies and you look at kind of a graph of this and how far the cooler temperatures are going. And you can see that they're really not going too far down. They're maybe going down 50 or 100 meters, somewhere within this range, and that's not going to have as big of an effect on the United States as it will if it's going maybe 100 to 250 meters down. So that's definitely a decent sign if you want a La Nina to take effect. Here again is a refresher of what a La Nina typically does to the United States in the wintertime, so between December and February. You can see that we have those colder temperatures, and this also counts some parts of Canada. So you can also see what that does for areas like Alaska and Canada as well. You can see that we have the jet stream dipping down, especially over the central and eastern United States, somewhat like this. There are a couple different types of La Ninas depending on how below normal the temperatures are in the Pacific. Some have this jet stream kind of just lingering off the East Coast. That's where some parts of the coastal Northeast would get a little bit more involved if it goes and curves a little bit further to the west, and that jet stream is a little bit further west. Then you're now dealing with the bulk of that rainfall or snowfall being in the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, and then eventually up into southern Canada. Most La Ninas, it doesn't even really matter how strong the La Nina is, but in most of them, you're going to be dealing with drier and warmer conditions over the southern tier of the country. Now, that does change sometimes. Now, again, there's going to be about like 25, maybe 30% of La Ninas where that's not going to be the case. You can see those wetter conditions mixing into the Tennessee Valley. So there is a bit of a difference here. Of course, even if the majority of your winter is drier and warmer, what's going to stand out, especially in areas like the southern plains and also into the southeast, is if you get one big storm. So, like what we saw down in Texas just last year, where we had that big ice and snowstorm. That winter really wasn't too cold for that area, except for that one little 2 or 3 week time frame, and that's what the entire winter was based off of. Everybody will mainly mention that winter and only talk about that 2 or 3 week time frame when it was really cold and where they got that snow. You're not going to really mention the other part of the winter where it was a little bit more mild, it wasn't as active. So even though the entire winter as a whole, maybe let's say December and January are warmer and drier, but if you have an active February, that's going to kind of cover the rest of the winter, and that's what's going to be the main narrative coming out of the winter. So another example would be what happened in the Northeast last year as well, where we saw for December and January, you were looking at this and you were saying, are we having a repeat of what happened in 2019, 2020? Or are we having a repeat of one of the less active winters? And what happened in February was that most of those areas got almost a 1.5 times the normal winter snowfall within a 4 week time frame. So the rest of the winter wasn't actually too active. We saw maybe just a few inches of snowfall over that entire area from December through January, and then come February, you had that really active 2, 3, 4 week stretch, and that kind of covered the rest of the winter. So that's what all of the people were talking about coming out of the winter. So even though, of course, you're going to hear the narratives, if 1 or 2 big storms moves into this area that brings a lot of snow, you're going to hear that narrative that it was a cold and snowy winter. Not necessarily. You're going to have to look back at the averages, and some of the averages may come out warmer and drier. So that's a long way of saying that even though on this map you're going to see warmer and drier, you could, of course, see one of those freak storms that completely goes against the pattern and dives down into this area, brings a little bit of snow and cooler temperatures. That is, of course, a possibility, although we're too far out to really forecast whether that'll happen or not. Here's a look at the forecast for the ENSO outlook. So you can see that right now for June, August, and September, or July, August, and September, which is right around the time frame that we're in, we're looking at a neutral or a La Nina being the most likely. There's basically a 0% chance of a El Nino, and you can see the El Nino is that red bar right here. So you can see for every single time frame, single 3-month time frame, you have a very low chance of seeing an El Nino. The really only two competitive ENSOs are going to be the neutral and the La Nina ENSOs. So you can see that for as we go between September, October, and November, that's when the La Nina starts to rise up a little bit more above that neutral bar. So you're looking at a 60% chance of La Nina, and that tops out at around 70% chance right around November, December, January. Then it goes back down a little bit, but still you're dealing with a fairly high chance that you're either dealing with a La Nina or a neutral. And ENSO neutral is usually shifted a little bit further to the east with the colder temperatures, which would mean that instead of having the Great Lakes see the most snowfall, it would probably be somewhere along the northeast or even a little bit further south into the mid-Atlantic or the Tennessee Valley with the majority of that snowfall. So that's the main difference between a La Nina and an ENSO neutral in terms of the pattern over the winter. If you look at the numerical forecast of this, you can see that between 0.5 degree Celsius and 1 degree Celsius below normal, that would be a weak La Nina or even up to a moderate La Nina. You can see that we're looking at for this time frame, which you really want to pay attention from September all the way to, I would say, about March, is that fall and winter time frame. You're looking at mainly 60. You're looking at 62, 67, 69, 64% chance that you see a weak La Nina. If we look at the moderate La Nina column, which is the one on further to the left, we're looking at 21%, 29%, 35%, 31%, 22%. So you're looking at a fairly high chance that this is a La Nina. If we look over at the ENSO or the El Nino area, which is above half a degree Celsius above or higher, you're looking at maybe 1%, 2% chance of that occurring. So very low chance that that would even happen where we go into an El Nino over this time frame. So La Nina and mixed in with a little bit of an ENSO neutral is the most favored as of right now. If we look at another forecast, this is showing you the difference between La Nina neutral and El Nino, again in percent chances, and you can see that throughout the winter months, which I highlighted in that black box, you can see that we have right around a 30% chance of seeing an ENSO neutral, and then you're looking at right around a 65 to 70% chance of seeing a La Nina. Again, single digit chances that you see an El Nino. That is quite unlikely as of right now, but if that did happen, it would completely throw out pretty much all winter forecasts up to this point, because we're mainly looking at a La Nina and an ENSO neutral. El Nino, again, it's not very likely or expected as of right now. Now here's a couple different charts on this map or on this graphic right here. Sorry that the text is a little bit blurry here. I copy and pasted this from the NOAA website, so their data was kind of blurry on their image right here. So I'm sorry about that, but this is showing you the sea surface temperatures over a about 12-month time frame from October of 2020 through the next few months. So this is through August of this year, and you can see how much below normal each area was on that graph over to the right. So you can see, let's start off with that Niña 3.4 index, which is usually what we look at. You can see that we were quite below normal as we got into November, December, January of last year, and now we're going into those spring months, the summer months. Usually it gets a little bit closer to normal or even up near that El Nino phase as we get into the summer months, but you can see that right towards the end of all of these, you're dealing with a little bit of a dip down, and I think this is the start of a little bit of a trend where we're going to see this dip down from maybe contesting with ENSO neutral to right into moderate La Nina or even higher into these areas over the sea surface temperature anomaly region, which we're really looking at. If we look over at the bottom left, here's the observed sea surface temperature anomaly 7-day average, and you can see that it is a quite weak La Nina. I would even say this is verging close to a ENSO neutral by this point, but as we go through the next couple of months, as we get into the fall and winter months, we're expecting this to go even deeper down into a La Nina phase, probably looking at a weak or moderate La Nina if I had to guess right now. And then if we look at the upper ocean heat anomalies, which is looking at the surface layer of the ocean and seeing the temperature anomalies, you can see that we were actually a little bit in that El Nino category. And if you remember, we were looking at the very real possibility that we were looking at a El Nino or an ENSO neutral just a couple months ago. I believe one of the first winter discussions that we did for this year, we were looking at the very real possibility that we were going into an El Nino, but that reverted, and now we're looking at a much better chance that we're going into a La Nina. And you can see that precipitous decline as we got into July, when the sea surface temperatures really shifted down into the La Nina phase for really well. So we're looking at a really strong decline in the sea surface temperatures, which again would match up with a La Nina pattern taking place. Here's the forecasted sea surface temperatures and the chances that it'll be below normal, and this would be for October, November, and December, so going into the fall months. And you can see that over this entire region, this entire ENSO region, which we pay attention to, offshore of South America and into the tropical Pacific, you're looking at between a 70 and even 90% chance of being below normal in those areas. So quite a high chance for most of those spots. And again, that would indicate a La Nina taking place. If we look at the model predictions for the sea surface temperatures, you can see that as we were going through April, May, June, we were looking at weak La Nina that even went up closer to neutral as we got into June. If we look at June, July, August, we were looking at still being in that weak La Nina or even an ENSO neutral, and then eventually we're going to be seeing that this is going to go well down into that La Nina phase as we get into the winter months, which would be right between here and here. So these are your winter months, and you can see that we're looking at the majority of these, including the CPC's forecast, which is the blue line right down here. All of those are well below normal. They're right around half a degree to a degree below normal. Of course, you have your outlier models which want to take this up, but you have to consider that we're looking at about 20 model list right here of different forecasts, and most of them are either right at that ENSO neutral line or they're below the line, which would indicate that we're at a La Nina. So most of these models bringing this to a La Nina within these areas. If we look at the actual consensus forecast and looking at the percentage of forecasts which are within each zone, right now we're at a weak La Nina or a ENSO neutral at this point, and you can see that most of the models, this black line is the consensus forecast. You can see that for the winter time from November through January, which is right in here, that we're going to be at its lowest, indicating that we're going to be at the La Nina threshold for that time frame. And then of course, as you get into the spring months, that's when it looks like it'll probably go back into a bit more of a neutral threshold, and who knows, we could even be looking at this going up in your El Nino category over the next coming months. So that is definitely a real possibility, and after a couple of years of a La Nina, normally you're going to see this go back to either an ENSO neutral or an El Nino for a couple years. So we'll have to see whether that actually happens or not. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. This is part 1 out of 2 for the fall and winter discussion for this time frame. I might do one next week or the week after, depending on when they do the updated September ENSO forecast from NOAA. So I'll see if I do another updated one of this. But again, tomorrow's video is just going to be continuing what we're talking about today, but we're going to cover a bit of a different topic. So in tomorrow's video, we're going to be talking about, instead of necessarily the sea surface temperatures, we're going to look at more the actual effects on the United States and what some of the models are showing in terms of the temperatures over the United States over the winter time frame. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.